Hello. Today we're going to be reading Morning, written by Stephen Cosgrove, illustrated by Robin James. It says a young horse wanders to a mystical land and is turned into a unicorn. It says far beyond tomorrow lies an emerald island, where all things magical and real live together in perfect harmony, an island where the sun and moon come together to paint the sky the most amazing colors and hues, an island of bright and beautiful tomorrows. At the very center of this island is a crystal glade called the Meadows of Morning. The glade is surrounded on all sides by tall and magnificent mountains. The only way in or out of the Meadows of Morning is along a narrow, twisting trail that follows the river through the mountains. It is here, protected from all harm, that creatures from all over the island come to give birth to their young. Mothers of every description, those with feathers or fur, long legs or wings, come to this quiet sanctuary to give birth to their babies. It was in the early spring, when the mountains were shedding their mantles of snow, that a young colt was born in the deep grasses of the meadow. His mother had labored into the night, and just as the sun was peeking over the mountains, Morgan was born into the world. He lay for a while, then stood on wobbly, shaky legs and gazed at all the wonders around him. He blinked his eyes in disbelief as the shadows fell away and all of nature looked at him. Step by step, with his small tail swishing back and forth in nervous anticipation, he explored bits and pieces of the meadow while his mother slept in the warm spring sunlight. With each step, Morgan became a little more confident until he was walking without hardly falling at all. Day by day his strength grew, and so did his curiosity. Occasionally he would take off to chase a butterfly or a bee, and his mother would have to nicker for him to come back. One day Morgan followed some squirrels across the meadow to their nest in the wide-spreading oak. He was so intent on watching them gather nuts and berries that he didn't hear his mother's call. Finally, when his curiosity was satisfied, he walked back to where his mother was neighing impatiently. "Morgan," she said as she nipped him on the ear, "someday your curiosity is going to get you in trouble. From now on, you are to stay by my side at all times. Do you understand?" Morgan dropped his head and muttered, "Yes, Mom." For the rest of the day, he stayed right at her side, but it wasn't much fun at all. The next day, the sunlight broke crisply on the Meadows of Morning. All the creatures, babies and mothers alike, rubbed the sleep from their eyes and went scurrying about the meadow searching for food. Morgan was no exception, as he nibbled on the tender grasses that grew in the glade. For the longest time he stayed at his mother's side, as he had been told. Suddenly, out of nowhere, 5 raccoons raced by with their tails sticking straight in the air. Without a thought or a glance back at his mother, Morgan raced after them. He didn't know where they were going. He just thought that it looked like a lot of fun. He followed the bushy tails through the meadow and onto the path that ran beside the river between the feather ferns and the golden green moss. On and on they raced, 5 little raccoons and Morgan zipping down the twisted trail. He had never had so much fun nor seen so many new things in all of his life. As they raced on, the river became swifter and a roaring sound filled the air. Morgan rounded a twisted corner in the path, but the raccoons had disappeared as though they had vanished into thin air. He looked up and down the trail, but there was no sign of his furry friends. Then, on the other side of the river, at the very edge of a cascading waterfall, Morgan saw the raccoons skipping from rock to rock across the raging river. Without a thought for his safety, Morgan began walking on the stones set in the river. He was almost to the middle when he looked off to his side and saw the cascading waterfall. It went down and down 100 feet or so, and it crashed with a large roar at the bottom. He scrambled quickly to the next rock, but as fate would have it, his front hoof slipped on a bit of moss. Suddenly, Morgan found himself floating helplessly in the river as he was swept closer and closer to the brink of the waterfall. "Mother!" he neighed with all his strength, but it was to no avail. He was carried over the edge. Morgan fell for what seemed like an eternity, with water pouring all around him. He hit a boulder, bounced off, and splashed into the cold, deep pool at the bottom. His leg hurt so, but with all the strength he had in his small body, he pulled himself to the sandy beach at the base of the falls. He lay there for a time, catching his breath, and then tried to stand. As soon as he got to his feet, the leg that had hit the rock buckled, and Morgan fell to the stand again. With tears streaming from his eyes, he suddenly realized that he was in more trouble than ever before. With a few excited squeaks, the raccoons who had been watching from high above raced back to the meadow to find Morgan's mother.